Not on Spotify.
This is the intro. Stop speaking.
Oh, it says live as well. What a nightmare.
We are live.
No,
Stop
we're
speaking.
live. Okay. Sorry.
That is unbelievable, isn't it? We get an intro. We should get another one though, because it sounds very Christmassy.
Yeah, it does a bit.
It does a bit, yeah. Way
Need a
too
bit-
early for that.
Need a bit more intensity.
I feel you do, yeah. But anyway, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Early Bath Football Podcast. There are 5 of us here today. Can't even see 5. It's who is with me? It's Chris. Hey, Chris.
Hello there.
We got Pristinda Jaya.
Good evening.
Good evening. Lynchy's here as well. Hello, Lynchy. And Barnes is here. Have you had a haircut? No, you haven't. You just seem like I've never seen you this sort of. You normally your lighting's a bit funny sometimes.
What, me or Lynchy?
You, Barnes. I can
Oh,
see
I've
a
done
lot
a shave.
of difference.
Shave
There
for
you
the
go.
podcast. Now we're live, I feel like I need to be more professional.
That is fair. We should be professional. We should be very professional. We have many things to talk about on this Monday, the 4th of October evening. The first thing is actual real news, and that is Ranieri in, Cisco out, the first managerial early bath of the season. That's huge, boys, isn't it? This is why we've named the podcast. For things like this. We've done red cards. Now the first manager is gone. Chris, it was always going to be Watford, wasn't it?
Oh, it absolutely was. I mean, I'm very happy I've at least got one thing right on this podcast, and that was calling Cisco to be the first manager to receive an early bath. I mean, when I first saw, what was it? Obviously, it was yesterday morning before they announced that he left. Obviously, it was the Athletic that reported pretty much Cisco's in trouble, and that due to, I think it was mainly down to performances more than anything. And then obviously Watford then released the club statement literally an hour or maybe even half an hour later saying, oh yeah, Cisco's gone and that. And when I first saw it, I thought it was a bit harsh really, because they were in 14th place at the time. Obviously they've now been knocked back down to 15th, but 7 points out of 7 games. You're thinking for Watford, that's an okay start. But then when I looked at it a bit more, and obviously I took into account like the Watford fans, especially Miles Jacobson, the guy who owns SI Sports, obviously does the Football Manager games, who's a massive Watford fan, and I think he actually appears on Watford's like sort of TV. I think it's like Hornets TV and that, and he sort of like said, well, you know, obviously Watford fans are going to have faith in the owners, because obviously the Pozzo family, all right, they have been ruthless with managers, but we got to remember they bought Watford and took them out of administration, and during their tenure they've been in the Premier League, 6-7 years, and they've got them to like an FA Cup final and an FA Cup semi-final during that period as well. And like the Watford fans sort of saying, well, it's just the way the Pozzo family runs like the football club, so to speak. So when I took that on board, I was thinking, actually, yeah, that's not really a bad shout and that. And I think it's an interesting sort of game for the rest of the teams in and around there, because Watford, it's almost like playing a game of blackjack. Like say Watford have been dealt with, you know, a 15 or a 16. It's quite one of them dodgy ones where if you hit and you get a good number, like, you know, you get 2 or 3, then you have a good chance of winning. Or in Watford's case, obviously they've changed manager, they've got a good chance of staying up. Whereas obviously like other teams, like I know the Newcastle fans were quite vocal, especially on Twitter, saying, why can't we sack Steve Bruce? He's doing a worse job than Cisco, so to speak. But I think it is interesting to see what the other teams in and around Watford do. As in terms of Ranieri coming in, I think that's also an interesting one. Don't get me wrong. Like obviously Ranieri, he pulled off the greatest achievement in football history, in my opinion, when he won Leicester the league title. Obviously, it did sour a bit the second season. Obviously, he got sacked. And then you look at the last time he was in the Premier League, he was in the Premier League with Fulham, coming to do the same job that he's being asked to do at Watford. And I think he was sacked within like just over 100 days as manager. He got sacked because he didn't do the job that he was brought in to do. But then his last job, he come in at Sampdoria, and Sampdoria were bottom, and he kept them up, and then he finished ninth for the next season before obviously leaving in the summer. So it'll be interesting to see how Ranieri does with Watford. Obviously I've tipped them for relegation, and I know they've got a tough period of games coming up, so I still think they'll go down. But obviously me liking Ranieri, I do kind of hope he does well with them.
There we go. Ed, are you sticking a tenner on Watford at 5,000 to 1?
Absolutely not this year. Maybe next season if they stay up. I mean, I'm in a similar position to Chris. I think I actually thought they didn't have that bad a start to the season, but then when you look at it, they've not been great. They've won one game, and there's no teams in there apart from probably Spurs' first game of the season where you think, okay, that's a big side. You wouldn't expect them to get anything from that game. You know, they've played some mid-table clubs and they've won one game, which was Villa, which they very nearly threw away anyway. And I think with Watford, it's the style of play as well that I think has cost him his job. They didn't seem to really have any. I was going to say any plan. I think that might be a bit harsh, but you know, they didn't have a fundamental way of playing that just seemed to be lump it towards Sarr and see what happens. So yeah, I think it's harsh, but actually when you look into it, you can kind of understand why he's lost his job. In terms of Ranieri, I think it's fairly good signing considering the managers that are available. I don't think there's many better managers with as much pedigree that Watford could have really got. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he brings. I do enjoy having him back in the Premier League as well. He's always good in a post and pre-match interview. So yeah, glad to see Ranieri back in the Prem.
Well, there you go. The Tinker Man is back. Lynchy. Xisco joined Watford from Georgian top flight side Dinamo Tbilisi, apparently, according to BBC. They've got Ranieri in. He's a better manager, right? Surely. He's a Premier League winner with arguably the greatest Premier League story ever.
Yeah, I feel like he's sort of turning into one of them managers slowly that teams will look to if they're in a bit of trouble. He's quite reliable, isn't he? He's got loads of Premier League experience, but I feel like they should have given the previous manager a bit more time. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me sacking him before the international break and they got Liverpool after they return. You know what I mean? It's going to be very hard for Ranieri to get used to the players over that international period if the ones who haven't gone away on international duty then turn and face Liverpool, arguably first best team in the league at the moment on form as well. Haven't lost a game. I mean, yeah, obviously they beat Norwich, beat Aston Villa. I think that was quite a shock, wasn't it? The first game of the season they beat Villa. Everyone had high expectations of Villa. I mean, I was just looking through the games they have lost. I mean, Leeds, Tottenham, Brighton, and I can't remember the fourth team. But I mean, Wolves, that was it. I don't know. When you look at that in fixtures on paper before the season, it wouldn't be any teams, maybe Brighton before the start of the season, but obviously they're really good form this season, aren't they? It wouldn't be any teams you'd expect a promoted team to potentially take points off of them anyway. But yeah, I think like Chris and Ed were saying, I think it's more the performances and the style of play they've gone towards. I saw the match of the day highlights, obviously, but it's not a proper representation. But I think they were very poor on Saturday. But they still could have got a point because, in my opinion, the foul on Meslier for the Leeds keeper, I don't think that was a foul. So Watford still could have got away with a point. So I think it's a bit early, considering he got them up. He's been there less than 10 months or so. But I mean, yeah, Ranieri's definitely a steady pair of hands. So I mean, if he can't get them out of the trouble, then I think they're going down.
Well, there you go.
I think it speaks volumes that Ben Foster, who was captain on Saturday, came out and said they were nowhere near good enough after the game. Yeah. I mean, that's big red flag, isn't it?
Yeah.
The cycling goalkeeper himself. Subscribe to him, maybe. Maybe if you haven't subscribe to us and then subscribe to Ben Foster, the cycling goalkeeper, of course. Barnes, hello. This is the Pozzo family working their magic again. This is their 13th change of boss since 2012. And I think Xavi Gracia has been in there, hasn't he? And who was the one? Sanchez Flores. I can't remember his name. Yeah, he's been there He's been there a few times, hasn't he? So this is the 13th change of manager since 2012. You recently called Xisco the best dressed manager in the Premier League, didn't you? Personally, how are you taking this devastating news?
Well, I was going to say, after my comments I said Xisco's most likely to be James Bond. Daniel Craig releases his final James Bond film. Xisco is sacked. That's all I'm saying. It's a strange turn of events. Xisco to be next James Bond. Who knows? on
We
the
know,
Watford,
we know.
On the Watford thing of them, 13 managers in was it 10 years? Did you say?
Since 2012, so 9 years.
Okay, 9 years. I think they're coming under the Potters are coming under a lot of criticism, and it's kind of I understand it because it's a very weird way of doing things. It's not something we're typically used to in English football. I think we value loyalty quite a lot, but I think if you think of the size of club that Watford are, them being towards the bottom of the Premier League, top of the Championship, I think that's about where they should be. So I think the owners sort of, striving to stay in the Premier League, and we all know how much money that's available as if you stay in the Premier League. So I don't really mind them sort of twisting instead of sticking when it comes to managers like Xisco. And they always gamble on their managerial appointments. They're always like out of the blue, out of nowhere. So I suppose Ranieri's a bit of a sort of change the wind from that, because as Lynchy and as all the boys have said, really, that he's a very experienced manager. However, I would throw it out there. If someone asked me who do you think is the next manager to be sacked in the Premier League, I'd throw Ranieri in the hat already, and he's to have 0 games.
He's been in the job for about 5
That's
months.
how volatile. Well, Watford is such a volatile club, and if you don't hit the ground running, then you're in trouble. And I don't think Ranieri is going to be very good at Watford. I agree with Ed. He is good value he's nice to have in the league. He's good value. He's fun. He talks about pizza and all sorts. But I just think I don't think he's going to be very good for Watford. I can only see it going one way. But I hope for him it goes well and Watford stay up. But I'm worried.
They should have brought in Allardyce. Brexit football.
He might be in still. I told you, later on in the season, you never know.
Come April.
Allardyce season later this season.
Come April when they need 7 wins from 8 games.
Get
Malky Mackay back in.
Yeah. 80 boots
Flores.
Get Vladimir Ivic back. That's all I say.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. We'll move on because I don't want to talk about Watford that much.
What do you think of Watford?
Let's not. Hey, come on. We can't alienate the fans here. We can't alienate the 2 viewers that we have currently. They could both be Watford fans. Who knows? Let's move on to Premier League review, and I think we'll try and go through game by game because there's a lot that's going on. Let's start off because I have chairman's prerogative. I can choose which game we start off with, and it's obviously going to be Brighton versus Arsenal. Now, Chris, to go away to one of the Premier League top 6, the Big 6, and get a draw, it's a good result for Arsenal, right?
Considering how the game shaped, to be fair, I think it was a good point for Arsenal in the end. Obviously, it's a bit disappointing that Arsenal couldn't build on that momentum that they gained last week against Tottenham to, try and go out for another win. I agreed with Ian Wright on match day. Obviously, I did watch the game in full, but I sort of rewatched the highlights of match day as well. I agreed with Ian Wright that Aubameyang had a massively off day. When you're playing against a team like Brighton, who are going to have possession of the ball for a lot of the game, the main job as your striker is to hold the ball up and keep the ball. With Aubameyang, every ball that went into him bounced off of him and it come back to Brighton. What I will say about Brighton, unfortunately for them, Tang, it looked like Brighton of last season where they played well, but when it got to the final third or the last bit, they just messed it up. But now that Cucurella looks a good player, doesn't he? As well, right? He had a fantastic game. Yeah, he's got great hair as well. Yeah, I mean, he gave Tomiyasu a tough run for his money on Saturday. But I also want to point out, I mean, I know Leif put in our group chat, like he's pretty much saying everyone's got to apologise to Aaron Ramsdale at some point, but Aaron Ramsdale made a huge key. In a way, it was a save, but it was also an interception at the same time as well. I think it was like 86 minutes in. Obviously, a header's come back across the goal. And obviously, Ramsdale's had to claw it away from Neil Maupay. Otherwise, it would have been an easy tap-in for Neil Maupay. But it's been a great start to life for Ramsdale at Arsenal. 4 games, three clean sheets, a few big key saves in there. You can't ask for any more. And I know we haven't really done a segment talking about the England sort of squad selection and that, but it is quite glad that Ramsdale was picked as one of the 3 keepers to play in Gareth Southgate's squad. Whether he plays or not, he might play against Andorra just because, I think Southgate might want to have a look at players against team. No disrespect to Andorra, mind, but I think Southgate might want to have a look at his players that are sort of knocking on the starting 11 door, and that I might save Pickford for Albania. He might play. Was it Nick Pope, the other goalkeeper you called up?
I haven't even seen it.
Dean Henderson injured.
Yeah.
Dean Henderson.
Yeah, so maybe you might give Ramsdale a run out against Andorra, but like I said, I am happy with a point, to be honest, with the way the game shaped out.
There you go then, and as long as Jack Stevens needs to be in the England squad, that's what I'll say. I'll start looking at the England squad when Jack Stevens or Simon Eastwood's in there. But Ed, you were the one on, I think it was Saturday night, that suggested that we do an Aaron Ramsdale apology pod. Would you like to start off proceedings?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think we absolutely slaughtered the signing when he moved to Arsenal. Myself included, but pretty much everybody on the pod was like,
I didn't. I said he was good. He was good.
Well, I think we need to review the archives there because I'm pretty sure we were unanimous in saying that it was far too much money and that
the VAR on that.
He was pretty useless. He is very young, and there was always potential for him to bounce back. And I don't think any of us expected him to bounce back as well as he has. Arsenal have been crying out for a goalkeeper that can keep them in and win them games, and he's done that several times. There was a period in the game last week where Spurs were all over Arsenal and he came out with a couple of great saves. And I think the good thing as well is he was absolutely fuming about the one that he didn't keep out. That just shows that he's really desperate to impress people at Arsenal, which for quite a while you could say a lot of the Arsenal players have been lacking. They seem to go through players that don't really care about the shirt, whereas he clearly does. Like Chris said, 4 clean sheets in 3. Keep going, son. Happy days. And as for Brighton, what start to the season? At the start of the season, would you have said, yeah, we'll take a draw at Arsenal? You probably would have done. I can't remember where they are in the league now, but they're still up there. So long may it continue for the mighty Seagulls.
The mighty Seagulls soaring high as usual.
But yeah, like Chris mentioned, just quickly, they do need a goal scorer. I don't think Neil Maupay is going to get more than 10, is he? You'd take 10 goals this season.
I think so. I mean, it's the return of expected goals and Hove Albion, I think, if they don't get a striker or something scoring. Needs someone like Glenn Murray, I think, to score the goals for them. But Lynchy, you're also the Arsenal fan here. Was 0-0 the right result, or did Brighton deserve to win?
I think it was a fair result. I mean, I didn't catch the game, but in the highlights, I didn't. There was no proper clear-cut chances that I saw from either side. I think even though Brighton seemed to dominate the ball possession-wise, they didn't seem to have any, massive one-on-ones or anything like that, like gaping misses. So I think overall it was a fair result. I think the biggest chance was probably the Ramsdale one that Chris mentioned at the end. I mean, if he did miss that, it would have been really an open goal for Maupay. Sort of building on the Ramsdale point, I think even though Leno's been quite a good shot stopper for Arsenal, you can tell, sort of similar to what Ed said, he's not a very loud vocal player. You can see Ramsdale whenever he has to make a save, he goes absolutely mental at the defenders because he really gets on their backs, and he's quite a vocal character on the field, which is something that just across the pitch Arsenal have been lacking in every position for the last 15 years. Them players are really going to pull the teammates by the scruff of their neck and tell them what they did wrong. And you can see Ramsdale is that type of player. I mean, I think I was most sceptical about Ramsdale because more the price tag, to be honest, like paying that much for a goalie. When I always compare it to Mendy, the goalie Chelsea signed, and they signed him for a similar amount, I think, didn't they? And he's turned out to be a fantastic signing. And also, the thought of Ramsdale having been relegated 2 years in a row never fills you with confidence, does it? So I think, looking good so far, but obviously it's still early days. But I think, 0-0 was a fair result. I think Brighton are definitely, I think they can push top.
Oh, they're just cutting out for
half
me.
The table, definitely this season. Like,
he's cutting out again.
Has he gone? While we wait for him, when I was talking, did I say 4 clean sheets in 3 games? Was that me or
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah, you said 4 clean sheets in 3 games.
Amazing.
Apologise to all the fans.
Lynch, you cut out
Sorry,
at
where
the
did
end
I cut out?
there. You cut out a little bit at the end, and you've cut
Where
out
did I
again.
cut out? Just talk about Brighton.
Yeah, they're going to push for the top 2, I think you said.
I think they can definitely push for top half of the table. I mean, there's
Okay.
no. I think the thing that will come back to bite them would be the like Ed said, the goal score. I think their build-up play is really good. It's just having a 20-goal a season player.
Oh, there you go. And it seems like Man City and Brighton both have goal scoring problems and need a striker. So that's good company to be in.
Although Neil Mopay, I've just looked up, has scored 4 goals so far this season.
There you go.
So if he can keep that up for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
I'm sure we can.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can. And on Aaron Ramsdale, I feel like he is one of those players that will shout at defenders when he makes a save or something. And I feel like it's going to peak when goalies save a penalty and then all the defenders come and crowd him and pat him on the back, and it goes out for a corner and the goalkeeper's like pointing and saying like, "No, go defend." I feel that's going to peak when Aaron Ramsdale saves a penalty and the ball goes out for a corner. He's going to be screaming. I want to see that more than anything.
Do you know who's an absolute goalkeeping shout merchant? Is
Go
Jordan
on.
Pickford.
Oh, absolutely.
Joe
just
Hart's
does it.
probably the worst one for me.
Joe Hart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the worst one for me. Shout merchant, passion merchant, one might say. But anyway, who's your biggest passion merchant? Put it in the comments. Barnes, I saw a tweet. I was stalking the hashtag BHAFC, Brighton Hove Albion Football Club Twitter hashtag on Twitter, funnily enough. And they said that there was a tweet there saying, if you ask the majority of Brighton fans whether they'd swap their manager with the current Manchester United manager, most of them would say no. They'd rather have Graham Potter than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, which is a crazy sort of thing that Brighton fans wouldn't want the Man United manager at their club. Thoughts? I know you love Ole.
Why are you asking me this? Why are you
I'm
asking me this? You're trying to get me in trouble with Owen and Leif. They're going to
No,
shout at me.
Because we've heard you're not Ollie faithful.
Oh, it's
Ooh,
very
ooh,
good.
ooh.
It's very good.
I mean, yeah, I think that reflects not necessarily badly on Ollie, but more on how successful Graham Potter's been this season and
What's
the sort
a very
of because Brighton took a
diplomatic way
big
of
risk,
saying
didn't they?
Sorry?
They took a big risk, didn't they, last
Yeah,
season when they got rid of Houghton to get in Potter? A lot of criticism came on Brighton, like, "Oh, why are you doing that? You're getting a manager from the Championship, relatively unproven at this level, and getting rid of Chris Houghton, who was a very decent manager at Brighton." And I think, yeah, the midfield against Arsenal sort of compounds how good of a manager I think Graham Potter is. Pascal Gross, Adam Lallana, and Jakob Moder in centre mids. And I think I'm right in saying none of those players' actual position, or as far as I'm aware anyway, are centre midfield. I think Gross is maybe more attacking midfield. Lallana we definitely associate with sort of attacking midfield role. And I'm pretty sure Moder's been playing wing back for quite a lot of his time at Brighton. And to sort of go to Arsenal, I know Arsenal were missing Xhaka, and I think they really missed him in the game. But Arsenal's midfield is still, pretty good. And I thought they absolutely dominated the midfield in that game. And yeah, like it's got players like Thomas Partey and you got Gross, Lallana, and Moder didn't get bullied or bossed around. And I think that's testament to the kind of spirit that Potter and tactical sort of awareness that Potter's got in the team. Just honourable mention as well for Shane Duffy. I mean, what a career turnaround. He went to Celtic, absolutely awful. And then he comes back and Potter gets him going again to come back in the team. I mean, Tang, you wouldn't have had Shane Duffy, I doubt, in your probably expected best Brighton defence maybe, last year or even now, considering how many decent centre-backs they have.
Well, the fact that they've been able to sell Ben White for 50 million and replace him with a defender already at the club was unbelievable. And especially one, as you say, in Duffy, who had a torrid time in Scotland. But, he's doing well, scoring goals. Him and Dunk have a really good sort of partnership. It was part of what got them promoted from the Championship and made them so good in the first couple of seasons in the Premier League. So, up the Duffy, we would say. Up the Duffy. And also, just shout out to Pascal Gross and the Cruyff turn, or the Pascal Cruyff turn. We're going to call it that. It's fantastic Cruyff turn. And yeah, I think, and open it to the floor for the Arsenal fans here. Chris, I'm going to count you as an Arsenal fan, obviously, Lynchy. The Ollie question that I put to Ash, put Arsenal in there. Would you take Graham Potter over Mikel Arteta?
Oh, that's a tough one. That is a very tough one.
That's a Gary Neville. That is. That's an
But it is a Gary Neville question.
Ooh.
I think I would, to be honest, just because Graham Potter does have a style of player, a style of system to play, whereas Arteta, I mean, all right, we saw a glimpse of it against Spurs, but he doesn't really have a unique style of play. Whereas obviously with Graham Potter, teams are going to dominate possession and attack. I would say Potter would probably do better at Arsenal, just because, biased opinion, I think Arsenal probably got the better strike force than what Brighton do, and they'd actually turn the expected goals into goals. But no. Quick fire question. I think I would take Potter over Arteta.
Lynchy, quick fire question, quick fire response.
I think if you asked me 4 games ago, I would have said yes, like without a shadow of a doubt. I think if you ask me now, I'd say not right now. I think it's a bit like, right now it's a bit unfair if you were to get rid of Arteta. 4 games unbeaten. It looks like now the new signs have sort of bedded into the squad. They're actually being available. Partey's back. You'd have to give him a bit more time. But in 6 months' time, if we're lying in 7th or 8th place and we're back to where we were at the start of the season, then 100%, like Chris said, Graham Potter's got a distinct style of play. You know how his teams are going to play against you, high press, high possession. Whereas Arteta's, I think, still to find that magic formula yet, but got to give him a bit more time.
Yeah, of course.
He is one of those, isn't he, Graham Potter, that you'd like to see just how well he could do at a big club.
It's sort of like Eddie Howe, I think.
Yeah.
Like a couple of years ago when he was at Bournemouth and they're doing really well, and he got linked to quite a lot of big teams. I think, did he get linked with Man City before like Pep went there? Even maybe, I don't know. But
he was linked with Arsenal.
Yeah, definitely with Arsenal. But, yeah, it's like, and obviously he's just out of a job now, isn't he? He got linked with Celtic, so he didn't go there. And you do wonder whether them types of managers, when they take the next step up, because at them clubs they're given so much time and space. Eddie Howe was never going to get the sack at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
I mean, he left by mutual consent, I think, didn't he? Then they sort of just decided part ways. And you don't think Potter would be like that either at Brighton, where they force him out in any way? They've given him time, like Ed said, they gave him a chance from the Championship. Whereas when they go to if they went to a club like Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, even somewhere like Everton, they'd be immediately under pressure if they lost a couple of games.
Yeah. I think I saw a statistic where pre-beard, Graham Potter has a 35% win ratio, but now he's got a beard. His win ratio of a beard is 67% or something like that, which is really insightful. So beards win your football games. But there were more football games that happened over the week, and I think we should touch on Liverpool Man City a little bit because why not? Chris, did you watch this game? And was it these games were always billed as big games? Sometimes they're a bit of a anti-climax. But how did you find the Liverpool City game at the weekend? Well, Super Sunday.
So yeah, I did watch the Liverpool Manchester City game, and yeah, from a neutral point of view, I thought it was a really good game. I thought if I'm in Guardiola's shoes, I'd be a bit annoyed to only come away with a point, because I thought City were the better team throughout the whole 90 minutes, especially first half. City were brilliant, and I know Owen was putting it a lot in the group chat, but obviously agreeing with him. Phil Foden just had James Milner on toast. Just Milner couldn't handle him, and you could tell City were targeting that right hand side of Liverpool's defence, and that with Foden against Milner. But I mean, we also got to talk about Mo Salah's goal as well. Oh, what a goal! I mean, for me, I'd probably say Salah is probably up there with one of the best in the world, behind like Messi and Ronaldo, probably in the same bracket as Levin. I think it goes. Obviously, I'm not one of them that want to open the can of worms of who's better out of Messi, Ronaldo. For me, just enjoy them. They're generational players, and that they're both right at the top. And then it's got to be like Salah and Lewandowski, and they're just behind them. And I know quite a few Liverpool fans on Twitter saying FSG just pay this man however much money he wants, because let's face it, Salah started the season brilliantly. He's pretty much scored in every game he's played, pretty much. Obviously, I don't have the full stats in front of me, but I know he has pretty much, and he got the assist as well from Mane. at the weekend as well. But it was interesting, Guardiola's comments after the game as well, because I think Milner, in my opinion, I think Milner was a bit lucky to stay on the pitch. I think he could have been sent off for 2 yellow cards and that, but it was interesting where Guardiola pretty much said, you're not going to get these decisions at Anfield, and he also mentioned you're not going to get these decisions at Old Trafford as well, because it's interesting. I know it's not like the next couple of games. I think it's some point in November. Man City do travel to Manchester United. So is Pep planting some early seeds there? Is he planting, a bit of mind games to the referees going, we don't get decisions in big games. Surely you're going to give us one in this one coming up and that. So, yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. But, I think if you're a Liverpool fan, I think you'd be happy to take the point just by the way the game, all right, they were in the league twice and that. But I think like Man City were the better team. And like we're saying, if Man City did have a out-and-out number 9, I think they probably would have won the game and that. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. I was thinking about this. It'd be interesting to see what happens in January. If Man City are still in the total race, do they take a gamble and bring in a number 9 in January? I mean, I don't know who they bring in. Like, they might bring Harry Kane in, or they might bring in someone else. But do they take that gamble and say, look, we're still in this total race. If we get a out-and-out striker, we can win it. So it'd be interesting to see what they do.
Definitely. Ed, 5 words for you. Mo Salah, little dancer.
Yeah, I mean, he's just unbelievable. It was interesting to hear Chris say there he's up there with the best players in the world. And I was thinking, on current form, there's probably only Lewandowski that's in contention with him at the moment, isn't there?
Probably Neil Maupay, but carry on.
And Neil Maupay, yeah. And Lewis Dunk as well is probably
obviously, and Benjamin White.
He's just
James Henry.
James Henry, of course. Shout out James Henry.
I mean, he's just different class at the moment. He's started the season on fire. You run out of superlatives for him because he does it every year as well. He never ever dips in form. He's very rarely injured, certainly not for a long period of time. He's just, unbelievable. And Jamie Carragher and all the fans on Twitter have been saying you got to sign him for whatever he wants. I mean, obviously, with a business hat on, you'd say, no, you can't give him whatever he wants, because if you break the wage structure for him, then all the other key players are going to be like, well, come on, I've just signed a new deal, and then you go and give him twice what I'm on. That's not the way it works. He should be our best paid player, and I think he will be at some point. It's just a case of dotting the I's and crossing the T's. But yeah, we need to get him signed down, really. In terms of the game, I think I completely agree with Chris. It's one of those where, on the face of it, I take a point. Yes, we were ahead twice in the game, and Fabinho had one cleared off the line by the most unbelievable block from Rodri. Although I do think Fabinho put it in the only place that Rodri could have stopped it. If he lifted it off the ground at all, it was a goal. But there you go, small margins. Man City played Liverpool off the park in the first half. I was the last sort of 20 minutes, I think, really, I was praying for them not to score. I think if we got into half time at 0-0, I fancied us to get back into the game. But if they would have scored, it could have been a silly score. I also agree. I think James Milner was lucky. I think everybody in football agrees James Milner was lucky to stay on the pitch. The only thing I can presume is that the referee thought that it was Henderson that caught Bernardo Silva on the second one, where they kind of sandwiched him. That's the only reason I can presume that he didn't get that second yellow, because that was a yellow card. So yeah, all in all, I think we'd take a point. Go into the international break, still up there.
Yeah.
Happy days.
Still up there with Brighton. Lynchy, will the lack of number 9 for Man City, will that be their downfall? Will players like Philip Walter Foden, will he and other players at Man City have, apparently his middle name is Walter, I had to Google it. Players like him, will they just fill in that sort of number 9 gap that, Sergio Aguero's left? And Gabriel Jesus has not become a number 9, he's now a right winger. So the one striker they did have, they've moved out wide. But will that be the downfall for City this season, do you think?
think this season's probably the greatest risk. Because obviously, I think really you can say probably the past 2 seasons, even though Aguero was there, he was obviously injured for a lot of it, didn't they? So they have played without a proper striker for a couple of years now. But I just feel like this season, the title race is just so much more competitive than it was in the previous few seasons, where that's why I think it's the greatest risk of not having a striker this season. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that if someone like Kane did go to City, he probably would easily get 20, 25 goals this season, the amount of chances they create. I think this season is definitely they're definitely being very risky not having a central striker. But I mean, if anyone can do it, it's Pep. I mean, the amount of players he's just played out of position, for instance, he said playing Phil Foden up front for a bit yesterday, and he's just happy to switch systems like that, even though it's not the norm. But I think it is definitely a big risk. I mean, like I said, I think the top 4 race and the ties.
I think Lynchy's gone again.
A couple of years.
You can't out a little bit, Lynchy, but I think we got the main gist of your response at the end. Barnes, I've been on the full pitch many times with you. I've seen your long limbs blocking and defending. To go to Rodri's point, were you very, very happy to see Rodri's block in the last minute? Ed's gone. Ed's completely gone.
He's gone. I was very happy. It was a great block, wasn't it? It was unbelievable. On the game, it was a great game. I think Man City. I've been slightly sceptical of how good they're going to be this season, but I really felt they showed their full credentials against Liverpool. I thought Liverpool were excellent as well. A couple of decisions they got slightly lucky. We've all said Milner probably should have been sent off. Man City possibly could have had a penalty, but yeah, I wasn't overly bothered by it. So yeah, it was a great game. I thought the one point I did notice was Pep's terrible attire in the game as well. And the funniest one was when he took off that, I think it was after the Milner thing, and he got really angry at Mike Dean, and he took off that awful cardigan. You think, oh, thank God the cardigan's gone, to reveal an even more awful, like Manchester City Puma sweatshirt. That's what I took out of the game anyway, as the most important thing that happened, really. But no, it was a great game. I really enjoyed watching it, and yeah, it'd be really interesting to see these two teams. Goes without saying, they're going to be right up there come the end of the season.
Do just before we move on, do you know what's always refreshing? We had a little bit of it with Arsenal and Tottenham the other week, but watching the big 6 sides actually attack each other, like it's so boring when, particularly towards the end of the season, when they need a result or they don't want to give the opposition points, where they just sit back and it's really cagey and it's like a chess match. It was quite refreshing to see like open, expansive attacking football in such a big game.
Yeah, definitely. One point I was going to make, which I got carried away with Pep's cardigan, was that Jack. What do you boys think about Jack Grealish at Manchester City so far? Because for me, I thought his 100 mil price tag was far too much in the first place, and I just don't feel like he fits the style of play that Pep's looking for. He seems to hold on to the ball for too long. I don't know. I'm not sure how well he's settled at Manchester City. I know he's only recently gone there, and it takes time to get used to probably a complex system like the Manchester City play. But yeah, I'm interested to see what you boys think of Jack Grealish, because I thought he was one of the poorer players on the pitch in that game.
He's an odd one. It's sort of like a square peg in a round hole, but the square peg is slightly smaller than the hole, so it does actually fit in, but it just doesn't fit in perfectly. I agree. It's a bit of it just doesn't really fit smoothly. Pep always, as much as Man City spend, and all the hate that we give them. I know Chris is boiling inside because we're talking about oil money now. But Pep does buy players which he needs, which sounds really stupid, but there are some managers who don't buy the right players. I'm not looking at any Man United fans here. But Pep does tend to buy places where he needs to sort of improve. And I think we discussed it over the summer before we even podded about how and why City pushed for Grealish ahead of Kane. Kane seemed to be like the one they should have broke the bank for, but they got Grealish. But that's my 2 pence on it anyway.
I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? He's gone from being the talisman at Aston Villa, where as soon as his teammates get the ball, they look for him and give it to him. So I agree, Ash, that he's whenever he gets the ball, he's just used to taking loads of touches, and that's not the way Man City play. They move the ball quickly, side to side. So he's got a big adaptation to make fitting into that Man City side. I think he's found it easier in games where they're playing poor opposition, where they do get a lot of the ball, so he can have more of those touches. But yeah, I agree. I don't think he played very well yesterday. He got hooked after about 65 minutes, didn't he? So I think Pep probably agreed. He's played well in Champions League games as well. I think the game against Leipzig at home, he was pretty decent. So I think it will take time. It's like any signing where they go to these big clubs with big expectation that have a certain way of playing. It's always going to take time to get into the side. I agree with you that he was too expensive, but I think that was a fair price for the level of player he was at Aston Villa. It's always with these big transfers, isn't it? It's how much the player means to the club they're at the moment. Similar with Declan Rice. I mean, Declan Rice has had a valuation banded around of 100 million, and you'd probably say that's a lot of money, but for the impact he has on West Ham and how Jack Grealish was at Villa, you'd probably say it's fair enough. I think it was Dirk Kuyt said before the game, I presume he was just trying to stir the pot, but he said that Jack Grealish is probably actually worth a third of what they paid for him. I was just wondering, Ash, do you think that's a fair valuation?
So what's a third? About 33 million.
35.
No, I think 50 million. That seems reasonable, just based off what other people go for. I think with these oil clubs, and well, it's not just the PSG and Manchester City, Manchester United as well, and Real Madrid. I think sometimes they have so much money that you can play teams like Aston Villa. Like, oh well, I'll hold on to play. I'll make a ridiculous release clause or agreement in place, and that's all well and good. But now these super clubs have the amount of money; it's really irrelevant. And for a team like Manchester City, that's a drop in the ocean, 100 million. So
yeah,
it makes sense from their perspective. But in terms of value for money, I'd probably put them around 50 million.
Yeah. It's a good point you make, actually, because United in particular are one of those clubs that get caught out quite a lot, aren't they, by big transfers where clubs are just holding out for every single penny because they know that United have got a lot of money. They know they can get loads of money for him. So they just hold out because they know they'll pay it in the end. And then United seem to have a terrible record of reselling players because they buy them typically in their prime. They play for United for however many years and then sell them for a lot less or let them go for free.
Can't even get rid of Phil Jones.
I was about to say, I think Shakhtar did that with Fred as well. I think Man U did put in an offer to Shakhtar, and obviously don't take this as true information, but from what I've heard is that obviously the Shakhtar board sort of looked at the offer, they laughed at it and thought, we could stick another £5 million on this. So obviously they counted the offer, and Man's like, yeah, we'll pay it, we're happy to pay it. So I think it just goes to show that probably Man U do overspend for certain players. That as for Grealish at Man City, in my opinion, I do think it's early days to judge, but it will be interesting to see what Guardiola does with Grealish, because obviously, as much as Jack Grealish is a brilliant footballer on the pitch, he is known for some off the field antics, shall we say. So if he does have one of them at Man City, how will Guardiola deal with it and deal with him, of course? And that, I mean, obviously, you like to think maybe Guardiola pretty much said to him before he signed the contract, just saying, I don't want any nonsense from you off the field, and now I want you to be concentrating on your football. Because what is it? I think it was Danilo that come out and said, because obviously he used to play for Man City, Danilo. I think he came out and said literally Guardiola's 100% football. Everything he talks about is football, and that. And I know Danilo was a bit critical in that sense, but I think it's just the way that Guardiola is. That obviously he says he's come from. He's one of Bielsa's disciples, if you want, and obviously we know what Bielsa's like as well. Bielsa is a massive, football. Let's just say he's a football fan, although he does like to make PowerPoint presentations about how Derby County players take corners.
Fantastic insight, Chris. I feel like Pep was one of those managers that bans ketchup on the training ground or something. I just get the vibe from that. We will move on because we're rapidly sort of running out. We don't have a time limit, but we should just move on. Sorry, Barnes, can't talk about Burnley. We'll have to do it on the next pod. Apologies.
Gutting.
Okay. We will touch upon the Fantasy Premier League because obviously the Fantasy Premier League is the biggest thing in everyone's life. I will share the Early Bath Podcast League. Currently topping our league with 447 points is Canate, but Canate Believe It with Ed Priest. He's up top at the minute. He's very happy, very smug. And then down the bottom is two Tony brothers, and that's Chris Olive on 338 points. That's 109 points behind Ed. Chris, what's happening? What's happening?
I mean, I too felt I did admit when we done the Fantasy Premier League tips that I wasn't the best fantasy football player, but obviously behind the scenes we've all agreed that whoever finishes bottom of this league will have to wear a rival shirt, and obviously in my case, it's either the case of wearing an awful Swindon shirt or a horrible Spurs shirt,
or a hybrid of both.
Yeah, I might have to wear a hybrid of both, which is. Yeah, it just makes me feel sick thinking about it. So I'm gonna have to start buckling up my ideas in fantasy. But like I said, it's early days.
Early days for the other Bath.
I don't want to bring Josh Leafy into this, but he's already used his triple captains, and I think that's a Garth Crooks poor decision, as you'd say, because you got to wait until there's a double game week and that, and when you give your captaincy to someone like a Salah or a Lukaku and that. Obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing. I'm just disappointed I didn't give the captain's armband to Andros Townsend this week after his goal at Old Trafford. I mean, he probably should have been deducted points for the awful Ronaldo Sue take. Although maybe you could argue he should have been added points for the S housery.
We do love the S housery.
So I mean. It's still early days. Obviously, I'm not run by the Pozzo family. Otherwise, I would have been sacked by now. But yeah, it's early days. I think I could come back into it. I don't think I'm going to win it, but as long as I don't finish bottom, that's the main thing.
Exactly. Ed, you're currently top. For the fans, who is the number one player? Who's been the best fantasy football player for you this season?
Oh, do you know what? I've actually not been that pleased with my team so far this season. I'm potentially going to hit the wild card button after the international break because I was really tempted this week. I had a lot of fires that I needed to fight this week, but I managed to just make one transfer and hold out. I think Antonio's been the big one for me. I had him since the start. I've captained him a couple of times. He's been pretty decent. Rafinha as well. I've had him since the start. He's been pretty good. Mo Salah's been unreal. Fernandez, I had him first week, but he's been pretty bog standard since then. I think he got an assist this week, but other than that, he's only had one return, so he will probably be going in the bin. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I'm just looking at Chris's team. Actually, it's not that horrendous a team. You've just had a couple of weeks where none of your gambles have paid off. I mean, it's not a horrendous team. There's definitely some worse ones in the OX28 league that we've got. I mean, you've got Iheanacho, who had a great game this weekend. Townsend as well. Matty Cash, Cresswell and Digne. You've obviously gone for fullbacks who are more attacking, so it's pretty good. You've got Schmeichel and Mendy in goal. Both pretty reliable.
There you go.
Yeah. Dan just put that Titch has got Zinchenko and got him a total of 2 points in 7 games.
Injured for 5 weeks, I think.
So that says it all. You've not got any casualties, really, Chris. So I think I can't see you coming bottom this season. You just got to remember to do it every week, mate.
Yeah.
Some good advice there from the top of the league there, Chris. Chris has gone for all fullbacks. I've just seen your team. You've gone for centre backs. You've got Ben White, Shane Duffy, and Antonio Rudiger. How are they paying off for you at the minute?
Well, I remember when we did the fantasy episode for the podcast before the season, I did say Ben White would be a bit of a shrewd side. I mean, obviously he was out injured. He had one game against Brentford, obviously, which we won't talk about, but he's out injured. Then when he came back in, he's got 3 clean sheets in 4 games. He's 4.5 million.
He's cheap.
I think we got an all right run of fixtures coming up. I know I've noticed a couple of the boys in the league now started to bring in Ramsdale and Ben White. So both very cheap because the Arsenal clean sheet. So I'm pretty happy with that one. I mean, Shane Duffy, like you said, Brighton are solid at the back, and he's like 4.1 million, I think, when I got him. And I don't think you can find a defender on FPL that actually starts every week at that price, apart from him. Yeah. And like you said, he gets a few goals from corners, doesn't he? Headers.
He is indeed.
I just bought in Rudiger last week because I think he's got
a nice run of fixtures.
Yeah, Chelsea's run.
And their defence is I know they conceded at the weekend, but I mean they've only conceded.
Oh, Lynch is cut out again. Oh no, it's always at the end.
Has he gone?
Slowly.
He's back. He's back.
Oh, he's back. He's back. The difficulty for Chelsea is knowing who's going to play. There's so much rotation in that Chelsea defence. It's tricky. It's a bit like having Man City defenders, although they seem to be a bit more.
Yeah, I think Rudiger's the one.
Yeah,
I think Rudiger seems like the most likely to start out of the four.
Yeah.
Barnes, you had the best week out of anyone last week. A huge 57 points. I think it's probably because you captained Salah, or I think it's because he had Cucurella in there, the palm tree himself. The best 15 million anyone's ever spent in Premier League history. Are you going to kick on from this week? A good week you had.
Well, I have an admission to make that I completely forgot for this week, and I won. I think that says it all about.
That's always the way.
Like for example, I think I made the big decision. I was like, I've got to get Lukaku in. You know, he's unbelievable striker. He's going to bag loads of goals. I think I put him in 2 or 3 games. I don't think he's scored since. I've gone to 5 at the back as well.
Yeah, you have gone 5.
Yeah, I did it for 1 game, and it went sort of well because I thought there was going to be a lot of boring fixtures, and then I forgot to set up. So now I'm just sort of stuck with this 5 at the back and having like quite a lot of good defenders. I'm kind of liking it, to be honest. I feel like defenders actually get quite a lot of points, sort of on the down low, and they're pretty cheap. So I don't know. It's a lottery. If I remember to set up, I might do a bit better. But I'd say I'm very much mid-table obscurity at the minute.
There you go. We'll move on to our final segment, and it is the return of part 3 of Fantasy 6-a-side teams. Hey, great team. For those who don't remember, basically just if you have using football players that have your name and making a 6-a-side team out of them, and you have to include a celebrity as well. So we've all done ours apart from Lynchy. So let me get Lynchy's side up. Hopefully that comes up there. Let me remove this little banner if I can. Who knows? There we go. Can I somehow show Lynchy here? Oh, there you go. Link's on the side. So Lynchy, take us through your team.
Yeah, so in goal I got Brighton's goalie. So you can't see my name there. But he's got his middle name is my surname, which I did not know until I searched up players with my surname. I think does he start for Spain now? Was he was definitely in the Spanish squad, wasn't he?
Spain. He's played for Spain, so I don't
know.
Nowhere
for Brighton.
Yeah.
Pretty solid goalie. I mean, it was between him and Danny Ward, the Leicester. Was he Leicester backup? I think. I'm not sure if he's in there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Obviously, Danny Alves speaks for himself. I mean, I think he's won the most club trophies, hasn't he, of anyone through that time he was at Barcelona.
Yeah.
Daniel Agger, just thought he's solid centre back, isn't he?
Solid.
Huge.
Had a good career at Liverpool. I think that's a good back two there. And the midfield got quite a good passing ability, and then a bit of combativeness with Danny Dyer in there. Just see him running around like a headless chicken. It was between him and Daniel Craig. I thought just for the comedy factor. I went for Danny Dyer just for the comedy factor, but it was a tough one. I feel like Daniel Craig would probably be a decent footballer. And up front, Daniel Sturridge, but only in his prime when he was up front with Suarez and Sterling. I mean, he was such a good player in those couple of seasons. Just completely dropped off. But yeah, I was pretty happy with my starting lineup. I mean, much easier than someone like Ed's one, having to find players.
This is a great side. And when Lynchy sent this to me on WhatsApp, when WhatsApp wasn't down earlier today, he gave me all the positions, and then he just put Danny Dyer position everywhere. So I just put in the whole left flanks for him. Lads, what do you think? Chris, what do you think of this side here?
I think it's a solid team. I think it's also a well-balanced team as well. And I know with Danny Alves, he is quite a versatile player as well, because he has been playing central midfield for Sao Paulo, and I think he played in there for the Brazil Olympic team as well, because I know he was one of the over 23 players. My only concern with Lynchy's team is that it's a bit injury prone. I mean, especially Agger and Sturridge. I don't know what they put in the sort of Weetabix at Liverpool and that, but I know they were two very injury prone players when they were playing at Anfield and that. And I think that'll be anything that they've done. Obviously, it's interesting with Sturridge as well because he's recently got himself a new club. He's playing. I can't remember what Australian team he's playing for, but Perth.
Yeah, Perth Glory.
Yeah, he's now at Perth Glory in the A-League. So it'd be interesting to see how he does down under.
Very good. Ed, it's nice to see a couple of former Liverpool players in here.
Oh, it's delightful. One of my boyhood heroes, Daniel Agger. What a player. I've got a couple of questions, mostly around Danny Drinkwater. I can't quite understand how he's crept into this side. I presume it was just because you were quite strict on the naming conventions, because there's quite a few other Dans that I thought might have gotten there. Danny Carvajal, possibly.
Ooh.
Yeah, he's like a right back, isn't he? So I was like, you could put Danny Alves midfield. The other one, it was between Danny Drinkwater and Daniele De Rossi, but yeah, I was quite strict on myself for naming.
What about Jordan Henderson?
Ooh,
but yeah, you try more Liverpool players, and there's a whole Liverpool team soon.
Yeah. Danny Ings. I thought Danny Ings.
Yeah. So the striker was between Daniel Sturridge and Danny Ings. Like I said, I'd have Sturridge over Ings if it was prime Sturridge.
Yeah.
When he was playing with Sterling and Suarez.
Kieran, I can't believe he's not put in Dan Burn.
Oh, big Dan Burn.
Missed a good chance on Saturday.
He did miss a good chance. I feel like if you've got Danny Dyer patrolling the whole left flank, you don't need Dan Burn there.
True. And then the final one was Samir Handanovic in goal. Thought you could have had him in there.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, I think just because of the novelty of someone having my surname as their middle name, just had to go for it. And he's quite current, isn't he? I mean, he's like I said, he's sort of up and coming at Brighton. Sort of came out of nowhere last couple of seasons, didn't he? Because Matt Ryan was like solid number one there. I didn't think anyone would knock him off his perch, but Sanchez sort of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, very modern.
Just another quick one for me, Lynchy. Was you not tempted by Dani Olmo? Obviously, up and coming Spanish midfielder playing at Leipzig. Obviously, he played for Spain in the Euros as well.
Yeah, I mean, me and my friend sort of have a joke because he's a Reading fan, my friend, and Danny Drinkwater went there, and I think it was him and Baba Rahman and I can't remember who else they signed someone else from the Premier League. Scott Dan, that was it. And I just found it quite funny how I think we mentioned it on the pod how Danny Drinkwater was winning the league with Leicester and now he's dropped down to the Championship and he apparently played 3 games 90 minutes in a row this week in 7 days. Yeah, that's a good shout, Chrissy. To be fair, I think I got Danny Drinkwater just because my friend supports Reading. To be honest.
But Barnes, I can't think of any. Lynchy said he could have had Daniel Craig, and obviously the new Bond film came out this week. Maybe Gold Ings for I don't know. I'm trying to get a James Bond pun. I can only think of. Do you remember that newspaper headline which was like the names James James Rodriguez or something, and it was from the World Cup. That's it. That's all I can think of. But could Daniel Craig, could 007 get in the squad?
I just saw a message from Ed. Did you hear Martin Tyler's absolutely horrific James Bond pun that he tried to crowbar into the
No Time to Dive?
There were so many of them.
Yeah,
it was awful.
I think he said no room to dive. It makes no sense.
Clown.
He does that all the time as well. Absolutely shocking. Sort yourself out, Martin.
Shocking behaviour.
Sorry if you're listening. On the team, I'm going to go and focus the sort of analysis back onto your sort of midfield pivot of Danny Drinkwater and Danny Dyer. I feel like you're very much going towards a Kieran Dyer, Lee Bowyer situation on-pitch fighting. Can you imagine a night out with Danny Drinkwater and Danny Dyer? I think it'd be, dangerous. I also think, Danny Drinkwater, it's just... I literally, exactly the same as Chris, I wrote down Danny Olmo straight away as a midfield. You could sub him for Drinkwater. I mean, how his career's gone. And about Danny Dyer as well, last point is you can fully see him as the sort of like Sunday league player who's sort of half-time and he's off having like a fag and a beer and some stuff like that. So I can fully see him in a six-a-side footballing situation. So, yeah, it's the best team so far, I think.
Oh, bold claim. Bold claim.
I think it'll win a tournament of all the teams we've had so far.
Yeah, it's pretty tasty.
That's a huge claim from you at the end there, Barnes. And then she's got the best side. Anything with Danny Dyer in it is probably going to do well, isn't it?
Have you done yours yet, Tang? Did you do yours last week?
I have done mine. Do you want to see it quickly?
Very quickly.
Let me. You got me on the spot here. Here we go.
Oh, midfield. Oh, that's just wing backs. We would love to see it.
Yes, just every Kieran is a wing back in the Premier League. So there you go. And I've obviously got Japhet Tanganga in there. So
Yeah,
happy
you'd
with
love
him.
to see it.
You're probably wondering
Kieran
who Kieran
Gibbs up front.
Culkin is. No, Kieran Gibbs is there, and Chris agreed with me. He's the worst defender, so I'd run him far
True.
away from my defence as possible.
Mm.
But there's my squad. There's my squad.
Who's Kieran Culkin?
He is Macaulay Culkin's brother,
Nice.
and that's all he is.
Absolute Z-list
That's
celebrity.
all. That's absolutely.
Yeah, but Ed was discussing this. There isn't many famous Kierans. I mean, I think
Name a
Kieran
famous
Tang
Kieran.
is one of the most famous Kierans around. And that's
Especially in the West Oxfordshire area.
No, of
Exactly.
course.
Could have put yourself in there, mate.
I'm not Josh Leafy. We asked Josh Leafy for his Six Society, and he put himself in there as a celebrity. There we go. No, go on, Ed. Go on.
I was going to say this earlier, Chris. Is there a podcast yet where you haven't called out Josh Leafy? You did it earlier.
Feel free, Chris. The floor is yours.
I'm not going to do a Josh Leafy and play my triple captain already.
Well,
Bottom of the league.
well, I've said it once. I'll say it again. Josh Leafy's a poor manager at FM, and that's how we should end the pod. Just with that.
That's disgusting. You knew that was going to happen, didn't you? Anyway, we've been going on for about an hour and a minute. That's a long time. We've talked about many things today, and it's a Monday. It's a good start to the week here for the boys. So thank you very much for watching us live. This will now be available on YouTube as a normal video, so we don't have to upload it or anything. But thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Turn notifications on so you know when we go live, because now we are going live. It's amazing. And you can even comment. I've not even checked. No one commented. It's fine. I should check comments just in case anyone does comment. But we'll check that from now on. But fun. Hope you boys have comments too. But yeah, we will say wave and goodbye. Wave and goodbye. 2 arms from Ed there. Jazz hands from Ed. That's huge. Yeah, wow, that's really throwing me off. But anyway, goodbye. We'll see you very soon. Goodbye.